central bank ordered to buy bonds. The CCP is desperate. 300 million people to retire within 10 years. China's pension crisis emerges. Satellite images. The CCP replicates Taipei presidential palace in Inner Mongolia. United against communism, US, Japan, Australia, and Philippines conduct first anti-submarine exercise in South China Sea. It's all covered in today's China Truths. Central bank ordered to buy bonds. The CCP is desperate. There's buzz about Beijing planning a major political meeting this June, which has been on hold for a while. This has sparked varied theories, especially with emerging rumors of Xi Jinping, the CCP leader, urging the central bank to buy government bonds anew, shaking up the financial community. Economists have pointed out that this strategy is pretty much like the government just printing more money, a move that could lead to major political trouble. It seems Xi and his team would only choose this route out of sheer desperation. Douglas H. Pohl, from the American think tank Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, who was in Beijing for the China Development Forum, shared with Radio Free Asia that he got wind of the CCP's plans to host this key political session in June after chats with CCP insiders. However, he noted this wasn't set in stone. Amid these discussions, there's also talk of Xi Jinping having previously directed the People's Bank of China to engage in treasury bond transactions to expand its balance sheet, hinting at a possible move towards quantitative easing. This rumor has ruffled feathers across the financial markets. During a key financial meeting last October, Xi called on the central bank to beef up its monetary policy toolkit, suggesting an increase in government bond transactions. This directive for the central bank to scoop up more government bonds is quite rare and unexpected in China, a move not commonly used over the past 2 decades. Usually, the central bank would lean on other methods to pump liquidity into the markets. Yet, 5 months after Xi's order, there's no public record of the central bank kicking off such transactions. The general consensus is that the bank is wary of resorting to quantitative easing, mindful of the potential for inflation and asset bubbles. The central bank's playbook for buying treasury bonds is pretty tight, with direct purchases in the primary market off limits by law, making secondary market transactions, like repurchase agreements, the norm. Taiwanese economist Wu Jialong highlighted that the central bank directly buying bonds essentially means the government is cranking up the money printer, a move colloquially known as flooding the market with cash. Wu highlighted the CCP government's financial struggles, exacerbated by a declining real estate market, which has rendered land sales ineffective for filling budget deficits. This has led local governments to issue bonds, with the central bank stepping in to directly purchase these bonds due to the central government's financial constraints. This process, known as bond monetization, positions the central bank as the buyer of last resort, involving its direct involvement in the primary market for initial bond issuance. While the central bank typically operates in the secondary market, its direct purchase at issuance mirrors direct government borrowing, posing a risk of significant inflation. Wu likened the situation to the historical period of the Chinese Civil War, where massive money printing eventually led to the fall of the nationalist government. He concluded that the CCP's current path suggests a dire lack of options, contrasting this with the Federal Reserve's approach in the U.S., which operates under a stringent set of rules, thus avoiding such drastic measures. 300 million people to retire within 10 years, China's pension crisis emerges. BBC Chinese reported on April 5 about the aging population in China, stating that the decades-long one-child policy, combined with slowing economic growth and shrinking government finances, has left Beijing facing an increasingly severe demographic crisis. The report indicates that around 300 million people are expected to retire in the next decade in China. As these millions leave the workforce, the country's pension funds are dwindling, and the government does not have enough time to build funds to care for the increasing number of elderly. It raises the question, who will take care of these elderly people? Recently, various levels of the Chinese government have been pressuring private enterprises to build daycare centers, nursing homes, or other elderly care infrastructure to fill the gap left by heavily indebted local governments. However, the report questions whether private enterprises will continue to invest if these projects appear to be far from profitable. Without sufficient economic strength to provide a cushion, China is aging rapidly. As a result, many elderly people, even those who should be retiring, will be forced to fend for themselves. Since the implementation of the one-child policy over 40 years ago, the only children born during this period are now facing immense pressure to support their aging parents. According to the China Pension Actuarial Report 2019-2050 released by the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences on April 10, 2019, China's dependency ratio will double over the next 30 years, and the pressure on the basic pension insurance for urban enterprise employees continues to increase. In simple terms, in 2019, nearly 2 contributors supported 1 retiree, but by 2050, almost 1 contributor will need to support 1 retiree. Meanwhile, the future fiscal outlook for China's social pension fund is very worrying. According to the report released by the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences in 2019, the current surplus of the basic pension insurance fund for urban enterprise employees, after maintaining a positive balance for a few years, will start to decline rapidly from 2023, with the deficit growing larger. It is projected that by 2028, the balance will turn negative for the first time, estimated at negative 118.13 billion yuan, approximately negative $16.33 billion US dollars. By 2035, China's pension funds may be completely depleted, and by 2050, the pension fund deficit will reach 16.73 trillion yuan, around 2.31 trillion US dollars. Some media pointed out that 2035 might seem far away, but it's not. Even the oldest of the post-80s generation will still not have reached retirement age by then. It's noteworthy that these figures were estimated in 2019, and after the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, which heavily impacted China's economy, the future pension crisis might be even worse than initially estimated. Satellite images: the CCP replicates Taipei Presidential Palace in Inner Mongolia. On March 30, satellite photos released by Planet Labs, a San Francisco-based private satellite imaging firm, revealed that the CCP constructed a military training facility in Inner Mongolia's desert that includes a detailed replica of the Taipei Presidential Palace and its nearby areas. These areas are significant as they house most of Taiwan's key government buildings like the Presidential Office, Supreme Court, Ministry of Justice, and the Central Bank of Taiwan. Simtak, an analyst at Force Analysis, a company specializing in monitoring conflict zones through satellite images, verified the authenticity of these images to France 24. He mentioned that the construction of the replica began around March 2021 and continued till at least February 2022. Experts believe this move by the CCP serves as a form of psychological warfare. Ho Ting, Bosco, Hung, a China specialist at ITSS Verona, interpreted this as a clear message from China to Taiwan, implying that if Taiwan refuses Beijing's demands, China is ready for military confrontation. Mark Lentane, a sinologist at the Arctic University of Norway, pointed out that this act is part of a series of aggressive behaviors by the CCP towards Taiwan. He was surprised by the replication of the presidential palace, seeing it as an indication of the Chinese military's focus on practicing attacks on specific strategic targets in Taiwan. The construction of a more detailed replica of the presidential palace than one built in 2015 suggests preparations not just for aerial but also for land military operations. Mark Lentane speculated that the complexities of urban warfare are likely being considered in these preparations. Furthermore, a post from the CCP's Eastern Theater Command on Weibo was seen as leaking China's military intentions towards Taiwan. The post, which celebrated a reunion of model companies, inadvertently showcased a training site in Jiangsu province that mimics the streets of Yangmei, Taoyuan, in Taiwan. This led to speculations about China practicing for a surprise attack on Taoyuan, a crucial area in Taiwan, urging the U.S. to accelerate its military support to Taiwan. United against communism, U.S., Japan, Australia, and Philippines conduct first anti-submarine exercise in South China Sea. In response to growing tensions between China and the Philippines, the United States, alongside the Philippines, Japan, and Australia, are set to carry out joint military exercises in the South China Sea. This collaboration signals the U.S. effort to consolidate its allies to stand against the CCP. Scheduled for April 7 off Palawan Island's northwest coast in the Philippines, this marks the first official maritime exercise involving these four nations in the South China Sea, specifically in the Philippines' Exclusive Economic Zone, EEZ. The exercise will see the participation of the U.S. Navy's littoral combat ships, Australian frigates and patrol aircraft, and Philippine patrol vessels. Experts view this exercise as a strategic move against China's expanding maritime power. Previously, the U.S., Japan, and Australia conducted patrols in the South China Sea. The inclusion of the Philippines this time indicates a broader coalition forming against the CCP, akin to setting a strategic chessboard across the first island chain. Amid these developments, the Philippines is actively seeking to strengthen its security ties with the U.S. and its allies. After incidents of coercion by the Chinese against the Philippine Coast Guard, the Philippines, striving for a neutral stance, finds itself compelled to side with the U.S. against Beijing's aggressive postures. Philippine President Marcos has vowed to take actions against harassment by the Chinese Coast Guard and enhance maritime security, reflecting the escalating conflicts over disputed territories with China. In light of this, the U.S. announced a trilateral summit in Washington on April 11 with Japan and the Philippines to discuss expanding military drills and Japan's defense support for the Philippines. Furthermore, Japan, the U.S., and other allies plan to ramp up joint exercises in the Indo-Pacific, emphasizing the importance of free navigation in the South China Sea, a critical trade route through which approximately $3 trillion worth of goods pass annually. The growing cooperation includes defense technology and increasing joint military training, as Japan and other allied countries view the South China Sea's security as a collective interest against China's maritime ambitions. This move is part of the U.S.'s broader Indo-Pacific strategy, aimed at countering the CCP's influence across economic, diplomatic, and military spheres, showcasing a unified stance among allies in the region. Don't forget to leave a comment in the section below to share your opinions on today's topic with us. Make sure to like and subscribe to see more interesting topics from China Truths.